Imagine uh, meditating for like 10,000 hours, reading basically every sacred text ever written.
Wow.
Yeah, just dedicating your entire life to charity and, meticulously tracking every single good habit you have on your phone.
Right, the ultimate routine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Only to be told that your spiritual bank account is completely bankrupt.
Oh, man.
Yeah, today we are taking a deep dive into a translated text that claims your entire self-improvement routine, the one you are probably so proud of, by the way, is a total illusion. Welcome to the deep dive.
It's profoundly uncomfortable premise, to be honest.
It really is.
Because we are so conditioned to believe that showing up is half the battle, right? But the author of this text, he's basically standing at the finish line, completely ignoring how hard you're running, and he's pointing out that you haven't actually moved an inch.
Yeah, it's brutal. So we are looking at a text by a writer named Shiving, and the title is Measure Your Levels of Self-Improvement and Self-Cultivation. And look, if you are someone who loves the process of getting better, like if you follow that Atomic Habits approach, or you love checking off your daily goals.
The habit trackers.
Yes, the habit trackers. If you consider yourself on a spiritual journey of any kind, this is honestly going to feel like a personal attack.
It really is.
Because this source material argues that the actual activities of self-improvement, they mean absolutely nothing on their own.
Nothing at all. The author is essentially demanding a total end to the performance of personal growth. I mean, we live in an era where self-help has been totally commodified,
Oh, totally. You buy the 5-minute journal.
Right. You buy the journal, you download the expensive mindfulness app, you post the inspirational quote on Instagram.
It feels like momentum.
Exactly. It feels good. It feels like you're doing something.
Huh.
But Shofeng's text is this massive wake-up call designed to just strip away that comforting illusion.
Yeah.
He forces a complete shift in focus away from that comforting routine of the process, strictly to the final outcome.
And the way he goes about this is, honestly, it's just brutal. The text starts by casting this massive net over what he calls cultivation.
Right. And he defines that very broadly.
Yeah, he really does. He isn't just talking about a monk sitting in silence on a mountaintop. Cultivation, at least in his definition, includes anyone doing literally anything to seek a higher truth or just improve the human condition.
It covers everyone: religious adherents, mystical practitioners, New Age spiritualists,
Yep.
people seeking the Tao, and even secular people who are just trying to work for the well-being of humanity. He's making sure that absolutely no one reading the text can sit back and say, oh, well, this doesn't apply to me.
He even explicitly calls out his own specific community, which I found wild.
Yeah, that's a bold move.
He mentions Lifechanyuan, which is a spiritual group he founded, and its members, who refer to themselves as celestial beings.
Right.
So basically, if you are actively trying to be a better person, you are directly in the crosshairs here. And what follows is just a relentless dismantling of everything we consider an achievement.
It's a litany.
It is. I want to read some of these because the repetition in the text is clearly meant to just batter down your defenses.
Go for it.
So he writes, if you say you've read the Bible, the Diamond Sutra, the Quran, or the Tao Te Ching, and ask what you've achieved nothing.
And the list just escalates from there.
Yeah.
He says, if you can recite and explain those scriptures to huge crowds of people, you've achieved nothing.
Nothing.
If you've practiced mystical methods for decades, you've achieved nothing.
If you've sought the Tao for years and gone to endless gatherings of seekers, still nothing. And here's the one that really stings for a modern audience, I think.
Oh, the internet one.
Yes. He says, if you've spent years online, day and night, neglecting sleep to debate philosophy or religion with netizens and connected with high-level spiritual friends, you guessed it, you have achieved nothing.
I mean, we all know people who treat arguing their worldview on the internet as a form of holy work.
Oh, absolutely. The keyboard warriors.
Exactly. They think that by defending their ideals in a comment section on Twitter or whatever, they are doing the real work of enlightenment.
Right.
But the author just entirely dismisses that. He even calls out people who have unwavering faith in gods, Buddhas, Jesus, or Grand Masters. He says it yields nothing.
And like I said, he even turns the gun on his own work.
Yeah, the Chanyuan corpus.
Yeah, right. He says if you come to his community, Lifechanyuan, daily, and you rigorously study his foundational texts, the Chanyuan corpus and the Sifeng corpus, you have achieved nothing.
Building temples, Establishing spiritual websites, delivering lectures to thousands, nothing, nothing, and nothing.
It's exhausting to read.
But the psychological intent here is fascinating, right?
How so?
Well, he is identifying every single metric we use to prove to ourselves and to others that we are good or evolving people. And he is flat out telling us those metrics are fraudulent.
Okay, I have to stop here and push back on this a little bit because my immediate reaction to reading this part was just intense frustration.
Fair enough.
I mean, I am a big believer in the value of the journey. If I want to run a marathon, for example, I have to go through the miserable process of waking up at 5 a.m. and running 5 miles and then 10 miles.
Sure.
The process is a prerequisite for the result. You can't just dismiss the effort completely.
You're right that a process is a prerequisite, obviously. But the author is pointing out this really fatal flaw in human psychology. We have a habit of elevating the prerequisite to the main event.
We confuse motion with progress.
Exactly. We reward the effort so much that we completely forget what the effort was supposed to produce in the first place.
I still struggle to throw out the whole concept of process, though.
Well, think of it this way.
It kind of makes me think of someone buying a top-tier gym membership.
Oh, yeah.
They go out and buy the specialized shoes, the moisture-wicking shirts.
Pre-workout supplements.
Exactly. They read fitness blogs for 3 hours a day. They carry around one of those massive gallon water jugs. But they never actually step onto the gym floor and lift a single weight. I get that that person is ridiculous. But aren't most people who read scriptures or try to genuinely improve themselves actually lifting the weights?
See, the author would argue that reading the scripture is buying the gym clothes.
Oh.
Yeah, it is gathering the materials. But gathering materials is not the same as building the house.
I see.
The ego loves the identity of being a seeker. It loves the feeling of being busy with spiritual or personal development tasks because it creates a very convincing illusion of superiority.
So you feel like you're doing the work.
Right. You get to feel better than the person who isn't reading the scripture, even if neither of you has fundamentally changed as a person.
Okay, that distinction between gathering materials and actually building the house makes a lot more sense to me. And honestly, the author seems to anticipate this exact resistance.
For sure.
Because he shifts away from these really lofty spiritual examples and starts using incredibly grounded everyday analogies. Like, he wants to prove this isn't just religious dogma, it's just a basic law of reality.
Yeah, he introduces a whole cast of everyday characters to just hammer the point home. You have Zhang Sam, who completes his studies all the way up to a postdoctoral level, but does absolutely nothing with it.
Right, just a professional student.
Exactly. And the text concludes his achievement is nothing. You have Li Si, who turns the soil on a piece of land endlessly, day in and day out, but grows no crops, nothing.
Then there's Zhao Lu, who studies architectural design, buys all the bricks and mortar, but never actually builds the house.
Samba is a lawyer who writes thousands of legal briefs, goes to court constantly, but never wins a single case or helps a single client. Did he accomplish anything? No.
The author is trying to show how absurd our spiritual logic looks when we apply it to the real world.
Because you would never hire that lawyer.
Never.
You would never pay that builder. Yet we give ourselves a total pass when we act exactly like them in our personal development.
That is so true. The character that actually made me wince, though, was Qin Shi.
Qinji.
The text says, Qian Qi preaches forgiveness. He talks constantly about perfecting himself in his environment. But, and this is the kicker, he quarrels with everyone he meets.
Right.
His achievement. Nothing. That is such an incredibly sharp observation of human hypocrisy.
I think we have all been Qian Ti at some point in our lives.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. You read an entire book on emotional regulation. You listen to a 3-hour deep dive on mindfulness.
You feel so zen.
You feel incredibly enlightened and calm. And then literally 5 minutes later, your spouse asks you a question with a slightly annoyed tone and you just immediately snap at them.
The classic trap.
You consume the content of forgiveness, you perform the process of learning about it, but the reality of your actions remained identical to before you ever read the book.
Which perfectly illustrates his core thesis. There is a line directly from the text that synthesizes this whole section beautifully. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, go ahead.
He writes, "The purpose of cultivation is results, not the process. Regardless of how thrilling, tough, beautiful, or long the journey is, if there is no outcome, the entire process is a futile effort, as worthless as lighting a candle in daylight."
As worthless as lighting a candle in daylight. Man, That is a brutal image.
It really is.
It really forces you to audit your own life,
Yeah.
and ask yourself where you are burning energy that doesn't actually eliminate anything.
And he drives this home with a final, highly practical analogy about a vegetable farmer.
Oh, right, the farmer.
Imagine a farmer who works all year round. He buys the best seeds, the most expensive fertilizer. He plows the land 10 times. He waters it every single day.
Working so hard.
But at the end of the season, a disease or a frost hits, and he completely fails to grow any vegetables.
See, I have another point of contention here.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a farmer works that hard and fails to grow vegetables, he still learned how to farm.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what went wrong. He gained experience for next year. Isn't that experience a result in itself?
Well, not to the person he is trying to feed.
Hmm.
The author asks us to put ourselves in the shoes of the customer at the market. If the farmer stands at an empty stall and says, "Hey, I have no food for you, but look at my expensive seeds. Look at my calloused hands. I learned so much." What does that matter to the starving customer?
Right.
Can the customer eat the farmer's experience?
No, they really can't.
The market demands vegetables. The universe, according to this text, demands actual transformation. You cannot buy the process of planting. A process without a result is just a fleeting illusion no matter how much you, quote-unquote, learned along the way.
How? Okay, that shuts down my argument pretty well. But that leads us to a massive, glaring question.
Which is,
If the entire point of all this effort, the reading, the meditating, the self-improvement,
yeah,
is purely about the result, what exactly is the result we are supposed to be aiming for?
right.
Like, what is the actual metric if it isn't the habit tracker?
According to Su Feng, the ultimate aim of all this cultivation is reaching what he calls the celestial kingdom.
The celestial kingdom.
Yes. This is his terminology for the highest plane of spiritual existence or, consciousness. And he is totally uncompromising about the standard for entry.
How so?
He says, imagine if he were the gatekeeper sent by the celestial kingdom to evaluate people. He explicitly states his standard would not be your knowledge.
So reading the entire library of philosophy doesn't help me get in?
Not at all. It wouldn't be your wisdom, your social status, your power, or your material wealth. It wouldn't even be how many hours you spent meditating.
Then what is it?
The sole standard for entry is the, quote, perfection of your soul's non-material structure.
Okay, perfection of your soul's non-material structure.
Yeah.
When I read that phrase, I struggled a bit because it sounds very esoteric. I had to try and ground it in a modern concept to really understand it.
It is a bit abstract. How did you break it down?
Well, the best analogy I could come up with is software engineering.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Think of a human being like an app on your phone. You have the front end, right? The user interface.
Mm-hmm.
That is how the app looks to the world. In human terms, that's the clothes you wear, the peaceful quotes you post on social media, the fact that people see you carrying a yoga mat everywhere.
You have built a beautiful Zen user interface.
Exactly. You've completely mastered the performance. But behind that interface is the back end, the source code.
Right.
That is your non-material structure. It is the invisible architecture of your emotional and spiritual baseline. If your source code is full of bugs, it literally doesn't matter how pretty the front-end interface is.
Because the moment it gets stressed?
Yes. The moment the app is put under pressure, like the moment you lose your job or someone cuts you off in traffic, the app crashes.
Yeah.
The interface shatters because the underlying non-material structure hasn't actually been perfected.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it, honestly. The text is demanding a fundamental, invisible shift in who we are at our core. It completely rejects the superficial accumulation of spiritual credentials.
Right.
You cannot hack your way into higher consciousness by memorizing ancient texts if those texts haven't fundamentally rewritten your internal source code.
But this brings up a huge frustration for me.
Yeah.
If the only standard is perfecting this internal source code, how on earth are we supposed to do it?
Oh.
No, seriously, he tells us what the goal is, fix the non-material structure. But he spends the entire text tearing down every single method of doing it. He says reading doesn't work, debating doesn't work, following a master doesn't work. Where is the roadmap?
He doesn't provide one.
What?
And that absence of a roadmap is entirely intentional.
But that's maddening. It's like a doctor diagnosing you with a terminal illness, telling you that taking medicine, doing surgery, and eating healthy are all useless. And then just saying the only cure is to not be sick. How is that helpful?
I get the frustration, I do. But think about it. Because the moment he gives you a roadmap, you will turn that roadmap into another process to obsess over.
Oh,
If he gave you a 5-step plan to fix your non-material structure, you would just start checking off those 5 boxes and patting yourself on the back.
I'd turn it into a checklist.
Exactly. You would start worshiping the map instead of walking the territory. By refusing to give you a how, he cuts off your ego's ability to perform the cure. He forces you to take total, agonizing responsibility for your own internal state.
Man, that is incredibly sneaky, but it makes total sense. So without a roadmap, how do we even measure if our source code is getting better? How do we know where we actually stand?
The text does offer a framework for measurement, but again, it is highly unconventional.
Naturally.
It lays out a tiered hierarchy of achievement based on 3 distinct destinations or levels of consciousness.
Right, I remember this part. It introduces 3 specific terms. First, there is the 1,000-year world.
Yep.
Second, the 10,000-year world. And finally, the ultimate destination, the Elysium world.
To give some quick context to these terms, in his philosophy, these represent progressively higher planes of existence.
Okay.
The 1,000-year world represents a state of extended peace, harmony, and basically freedom from basic human suffering.
That's pretty good.
The 10,000-year world is a significantly higher elevation of consciousness and spiritual power. And the Elysium world is essentially ultimate liberation, akin to nirvana or just absolute perfection.
See, I was actually so excited when I got to this part of the text. I thought, finally, he's going to give me the criteria. He's going to tell me what I need to do to get into the 1,000-year world. But then I read the actual criteria, and I was completely thrown off. It formats the measurement like a fill-in-the-blank test.
It literally reads, if you find that you, and then it offers no text, just an implied blank space, and then concludes, then you have achieved the results needed to enter the 1,000-year world.
It does the exact same thing for the other 2 levels.
Yeah.
If you find that you blank space, then you have achieved the results needed for the 10,000-year world. It's like taking a pop quiz with no questions. I literally kept looking for a missing page on the PDF.
You thought it was a typo.
I really did. I expected a list of virtues. You know, if you find that you give 10% of your income to charity, or if you find that you never lie, but it gives you nothing. It places the entire burden of proof squarely on the reader.
It acts as an uncompromising mirror.
Yeah.
Think about why he formats it this way. If he gave you a specific rule, like never lie, you might just suppress your natural urge to lie through sheer willpower, right? While internally, you are still a deceitful person.
Managing the symptom, not curing the disease.
Exactly. By leaving the criteria completely blank, the only thing you can evaluate is your true, unvarnished self. When you look in that blank mirror, what do you see? Have you actually changed, or are you just wearing the costume of a better person?
It really forces an intense level of self-interrogation. You have to fill in the blanks of your own internal transformation, and you can't cheat because there's no rubric to cheat against.
And the author leans heavily into this universal challenge at the very end of the text. He boldly invites followers of all global traditions to test his framework against their own beliefs.
He does. He explicitly says that followers of Jesus can examine if these standards align with Christ's teachings.
Right.
Students of Buddhism and Taoism can check if this logic is consistent with the wisdom of the Buddha and Laozi. He's essentially daring the entire spiritual and secular world to find a flaw in his premise.
He is stating that the ultimate metric of success transcends religion, it transcends culture, and personal philosophy.
It's universal.
Yes.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what tradition you come from, or if you are just a secular person trying to be a decent human being using a habit tracking app.
Right.
The law of the universe remains the same. The process is entirely irrelevant if the outcome isn't achieved. Have you perfected the non-material structure of who you are?
It reframes everything. I mean, it takes the safety net completely away from our personal growth journeys.
It really does.
You can't just say, I'm a work in progress anymore to excuse your bad behavior, because the text argues that in progress is just a polite way of saying failing to produce a result.
It strips away all the noise, all the apps, all the books, all the spiritual networking, and leaves you with the only metric that actually has gravity.
So bringing this all together, the core insight from Xu Feng's text is a massive challenge to our modern sensibilities.
Absolutely.
Whether your goal is reaching some grand celestial kingdom, or just trying to be a slightly more patient parent, or, trying to finally get in shape, the message is pretty clear. We have to stop celebrating the busy work.
We really do.
We have to stop relying on the dopamine hit of the checklist. A process without a tangible result is just an illusion. It is lighting a candle in the daylight.
It is a necessary, albeit painful, confrontation with reality. It forces us to ask ourselves if we are actually moving the needle or if we are just generating a lot of comforting noise.
Well said. As you go about your week, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Think about the biggest, most important goal you are working toward right now in your own life. Think about all the time you spend reading about it, talking to your friends about it, buying gear for it, and meticulously tracking your progress.
The whole process.
The whole process. And ask yourself a deeply uncomfortable question. Are you actually producing vegetables, or are you just incredibly proud of how much time you spend watering the dirt?